In Mythic Battles, we have literal divine beings using every power, every move they possibly can to navigate their sovereign people to battle, utilizing every spell and cheap trick in the book to accomplish their own agenda. While many fall for the glory of battle, some rise, leaving you bewildered and excited for more. Their bloodlust becomes so contagious that sometimes you forget that you're not really there. Welcome to our new series, The Units of Mythic Battles. Hello, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Units of Mythic Battles. This is The Light of the Darker, and my name is Weston. This is the series where we talk about the individual characters from my favorite board game. So far, we have already covered 8 different units. As we dive into every detail surrounding these characters, I promise you that you will walk away gaining knowledge. Whether that be about the strange and mystical myths of the epics we find in Greek and Norse mythology, or simply about the game itself. This is also a community-based series and channel, where I will take what you have to say. You will see that we have taken many suggestions off of the first-time commenters and the friends of this channel. Speaking of which, we heard from Anders that he would like to see Thor versus Tyr. Also that he'd like to see Angerboda. Since we're taking a unit from each iteration, I'm putting Thor against Pan, Tyr and Angerboda, and all the other wonderful suggestions by the community will be seen. So if there is anyone you would like to see for us to showcase, or if you have any thoughts at all, we'd love to hear from you down below. A great way to begin wrapping our minds around these characters is simply finding the most blaring similarities. For Pan and Thor, you will find that there are many to easily identify. Both of these gods come with one Art of War card and have very similar stats. The biggest caveat being Thor's extra strength over Pan. Besides that, they both have 8 defense, which they lose halfway through their health. Additionally, neither of them have range, and as you can see, they both start with 2 movement. Now looking over the right side of their dashboards, we begin to see somewhat parallel powers. They both have the ability to strike anywhere on the board. Secondly, they share a power that allows them to be accompanied by another unit for a lower cost. Looking over the sculpts, Monolith chose a more traditional design for both Pan and Thor. As we have gone from Pantheon to Ragnarok, and now Isfet, something I've noticed is Monolith creating more features when it comes to the bases of their miniatures. Most of Pantheon's miniatures have little to no extra features besides the character itself. Whereas when we get into Ragnarok, we see more use of rocks and other terrain added to the bases. Then, from what we've seen in Isfet, nearly all of the miniatures have some sort of added characteristics. Here, look at Ta compared to Aphrodite. Honestly, I find beauty in both. The subtleties can highlight the presence of the character and their stance, whereas I also can appreciate the added detail that can teach us more about the character. It can be easy to see past the fact that this is a god or a titan. Surprisingly, we actually see the reverse happening here with Thor and Pan, as Thor has no added terrain, but Pan stands on a single rock. Another son of Odin is Thor, the god of thunder. Thor's mother, Jord, is the personification of Earth, similar to Gaia from Greek mythology. Now, although it's heavily debated, many believe that Jord was a giant herself. Interestingly enough, Thor's sagas are brimful with escapades consisting of slaughtering Jotun, or these giants, and aiding humanity and dwarvanity, as you call it. Because he was supposed to protect this realm, known as Midgard, and the gods' realm, known as Asgard, that kind of serves like Olympus in Greek mythology. Thor killed many more Jotun than he probably conversed with throughout his life, although there is a very interesting story where he has a fascinating encounter with none other than Utgada Loki himself, whose true nature is Skymir, which we named one of Saturn's 146 moons after. Well, he encountered Thor, Loki, and a few other companions as they were traveling. It started with the party entering a strange-looking building along their travels. This place was in the middle of nowhere. As they attempt to sleep, the building trembles with horrifying earthquakes. Thor, with Mjolnir in hand, led the party out of this strange structure off of a hunch. As they exited frantically, they realized that they were in no such building. They had just exited the compartment of a glove on the hand of a giant so big they couldn't even realize. These earthquakes were in fact the giant moving around in its sleep. They quietly camp nearby, startled to do much more. Thor chooses to take another route. He strikes the beast repeatedly, but the grotesque giant chuckles, tiredly telling the god that he mistook his strikes for an acorn just falling on his head, but sternly warned the party as they were approaching the hold of Utgada Loki. This place is also known as Utgador. He and his men won't tolerate such things, the giant roared as he disappeared into the woods. When they arrived, they did approach Utgada Loki, sitting on his throne. After having their request for accommodation and clear passage, the king demanded that they each pass a trial. Loki claimed that he could eat faster than any other in the land, so the king had him face one of their largest giants in an eating contest. Loki loses the initial trial. Next, Thor agrees to a drinking contest. He loses, looks around the room for another way to impress the king. He notices this unusual cat with this supremely long body. He pulls the cat above his head, but only could get a single paw off of the ground. So lastly, Thor pleads for one more trial. He will show his value through skill in combat. Utgada and his men, feeling pity, sends forth the maid of the castle. Thor wrestles this gray-haired, raggedy woman for what seems like forever. Thor notices that with each moment that passes, he feels his energy draining all the way down to his soul. The king disrupts the fight. He declares that he is impressed enough, and he has his staff take the party to their rooms. The next day, as they exited the castle, Utgada Loki met them with a dubious announcement. All of the trials were actually delusions. See, Loki competed against the spirit of fire or wildfire. For Thor's first trial, he actually was drinking the ocean, which significantly decreased the level. The long cat was in fact no kitten at all. It was a disguised Jorgamon, which at the time held together the seas through committing Ouroboros. And lastly, Thor had been wrestling with Eli, known as Old Age herself. Ugata had one more announcement to give them. It's that he was in fact the giant Skymir the whole time. When Thor heard this, he immediately swung Mjolnir right at his head as Ugata and his castle suddenly disappear. Pan is known as the god of the wild in the Greek mythos, often depicted with the hindquarters, legs, and horns of a goat. Pan embodies the untamed spirit of the wilderness, a contrast to the more civilized and structured gods of Olympus. His origins are as wild as they are his nature. Born to Hermes and most likely a nymph, although there is speculation that his mother is in fact Penelope. Pan was so unnatural in appearance that his mother fled in the night, leaving Hermes to bring him to the other gods in Olympus. Despite his unconventional appearance, the gods delighted in his joyful and free-spirited nature, especially his talent with the reed pipes. He is also the protector of shepherds and their flocks, guiding him through the ragged terrain that many have to endure. Pan's influence exceeds beyond pastoral life. He is also associated with panic, specifically the sudden, uncontrollable fear that strikes those in the wilderness, which we've all felt. This fear is believed to be a direct result of Pan's presence, a reminder of the unpredictable and often frightening power of nature. Pan is also known to be a deeply chaotic and impulsive person, shepherding the satyrs, who are wicked chimeras addicted to wine and lust. One of the stories surrounding Pan involves the unrequited love for the nymph named Syrinx, who, fleeing from Pan's progressive advances, was somehow transmuted into a cluster of reeds in a freak accident. Pan cut the reeds and fashioned them into the musical instrument we have today, the panpipes, which he plays repeatedly to express his sorrow. Pan has 3 talents. His first talent is Bolster, which states the other allied troop units in his area gain a buff of +1 offense and defense. He also has Climb, which allows him to make a walk action into rock or cliff areas. And lastly, we have Leader. At the end of this unit's activation, they can choose a troop unit in their area and activate them as long as they don't exceed the activation limit. His first power is called Panic, and it does cost an Art of War card. It states, make an area attack anywhere on the board ignoring the obstacles, with an offensive value equal to the number of units in the targeted area +4. Then he has Divine Shepherd. When Pan is recruited, the Satyr's troop is also recruited for 0 RP. Then the owner takes the Divine Shepherd token. This is the only way the Satyrs can be recruited into Mythic Battles. When you find it necessary, you would remove the Divine token from the game to recall the Satyr's troop without having to pay the Art of War cost. Additionally, Pan can make another troop recall in that same activation. Panic is a very strategic ability that can cause immense destruction. It's especially helpful when you face an opponent set on stones, clumping all of their units around their gods in the spawn point. Also, the fact that this power only costs 1 Art of War card makes the cost appropriate. Most of the time, you will be rolling with 4 to 6 dice. Pan's 5 recruitment cards also give you plenty of opportunities to use this power. The Satyrs are amazing to have on your team. For a troop, 5 defense, 2 movement, and climb is extremely powerful. Also, you won't be wasting any of those AOWs you need for panic by recalling them. The Divine Shepherd ability also doesn't stop you from recalling another set of troops. So the minute Pan might be in trouble, he can bring in his satyrs and another troop on the board with guard. That's why I will always recommend you use that 1 RP you will be saving from getting the satyrs to get a troop with guard. Thor has 3 talents. His first talent is called Force of Nature. It states before choosing a target unit, the unit can remove a terrain element from their area to gain +1 offense and +1 range until the end of their activation. Imagine Thor just throwing that tree right at his opponent. Secondly, we have Mighty Throw, which again allows Thor to throw one of his opponents depending on how many blank dice he rolls in his first assault. And lastly, we have Monster Slayer, where when Thor goes against a monster opponent, he can re-roll up to 2 dice within the first assault. His first ability is called Mjolnir, and it costs an Art of War card. It states, make a normal 5 dice attack on a unit in any area of the game, ignoring any obstacles. Then we have Master of Thunder. This is also an offensive ability that costs an Art of War card. It states, make a 6 dice area attack in one of the areas in Thor's surroundings. And then we have Pan and Thor. At the end of his activation phase, Thor regains 1 vitality point. When Thor is recruited, you can immediately recruit Pan and Thor for just 1 recruitment point. Similar to Panic, this is a low roll attack and can hit anywhere on the board. With all of the numerous ways your attack can be blocked by an unforeseen obstacle, this is a great ability for someone just learning the game. 2 things that I find interesting about Master of Thunder. 1, they specifically worded this to affect an area in Thor's surroundings instead of making it a ranged attack. I believe this is again to avoid being stopped by obstacles. Then secondly, this attack will always naturally use 6 dice, where many other abilities like this depend on the amount of health the god has. Again, an easy ability to understand. Then we have Pan and Thor. They serve as a huge help, especially when you compare them to other troops, since you'll only be getting them for 1 RP. Similar to the satyrs, they also have 2 movement and climb. Additionally, they have block and unleash a small area attack whenever they run. If an enemy unit were to claim in TNT surroundings, they must also pay an AOW. When considering the counters for these 2 gods, I have many in mind. Nonetheless, these 3 stuck out more than any other unit. It's almost as they were made to counter these 2. Starting with the Furious Fafnir, this monster is an absolute strategy destroyer for your opponent, especially if they have many ranged characters or simply a ranged focused divinity. His Scorn ability completely ignores area and range attacks, not to mention the fact that he has high movement, attack, and defense. If either god were to enter his area to try and attack him, they would suffer the debuff of Fafnir's terror. Additionally, they would become blocked as both Thor and Pan lack that talent. He's the perfect weapon against these 2, and any attempt to seize him will come with consequences. The other 2 counters will keep you and your divinity alive after the many waves of Thor's Mjolnir and Pan's Panic. The Dragon of Thieves is an incredibly unique monster. He also boasts both block and guard. If the Dragon of Thieves is in an area which the opponent plans on committing an area attack on, then the dragon will take the attack while its allies remain untouched. Additionally, if you get the dragon to block either god, it will take you forever to get rid of him. He has 8 defense. Not only that, once he's defeated, the ever-annoying Spartoid will take his place. They are a troop of 7, which they also have guard, which would be extremely useful if the Dragon of Thebes died protecting your god. Lastly, Lagertha, costing 3 RP, will have you completely protected. She has guard, close protection, and 7 defense. She gives every ally in her area an additional defense buff of 1. Although she does not have the block talent, she does obtain her own power that is named block. It states that when Lagertha is the target of an attack, yes, this includes area attacks, that she will force her opponent to reroll 2 dice from the first assault. If anyone tries to attack someone in her area, she will use her guard. Then, whether it's an area attack or not, she can force the reroll. Thank you so much for joining us, as we have now showcased 10 units in this series. If you haven't gotten the chance yet, I would be deeply honored if you took the time to subscribe and like. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts and hopes for this series. Thank you to Anders for the suggestion of this video. Thank you to Andreas, Giles, Javi, Tormod, House of Panda, and many others who have taken the time to comment and watch. My name is Weston, and this has been The Lighter the Darker, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.